on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. It's Monday, President's Day, and we're acknowledging all of the presidents. No, actually, that's not true.
Yes, we are.
We're acknowledging. I'm acknowledging the mediocre presidents.
Oh, you are? Okay, I'm acknowledging
Yes.
the conservative heroes. We've already talked about Silent Cal, but of course, President Trump, Ronald Reagan. I mean, folks might throw in the Bushes. I know some folks may or may not agree with that, but they're conservative presidents, sure. And of course, George Washington.
Yeah, I mean, Washington and Lincoln is what we used to celebrate,
Yeah.
and now I'm celebrating the ones that we don't even remember. Just because.
Happy President's Day, yes.
All right, thank you. I think I'm on Pierce right now, President Pierce.
Yeah,
We'll
he
move on. There's
was
more.
not good. Okay.
He wasn't?
No,
I don't
looked
know.
him up.
I literally don't know. I mean,
He presided over the fugitive slave laws, so yeah, not exactly Abraham Lincoln in that regard.
joining us right now is Ian Pryor. He is a dad out in Loudoun County and not a big fan of the Loudoun Love Warriors, I'll have you know, and senior advisor for America First Legal. Ian, happy President's Day. Any president in particular you're celebrating today? Oh, we lost Ian. Oh, no. I got all that talk about Millard Fillmore and James Pierce and Polk. What about Polk? Should I jump on to Polk?
Oh, man.
Was he better than Pierce?
Well, we'll have to look. See, I don't remember my advanced placement history.
right,
Let's do some research.
we'll
I'll do
find
some
out.
research. Yeah.
Well, see, if I had gone to school in Northern Virginia, I would be able to tell you who President Polk was. Or, even more importantly, I'd be able to wax poetic about my gender identity. Ian Pryor, now back with us, America First Legal. Ian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you kind of saw this coming, right? Department of Education has now announced that they are investigating 5 Northern Virginia schools in particular, and this is following up on the president's executive order. So what's at the root of this here? What's the investigation going to entail?
First of all, that's the quickest response I've ever gotten to a letter in my life. So it's clear we have a new administration that means business. I mean, look, we sent a letter. America First Legal did to the Department of Education, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, requesting investigations into these 5 school districts. Right? That's Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, with the assertion that they are violating Title IX by allowing people to choose the bathroom based on their supposed gender identity. Within a little more than a week, we get a response saying, yes, they have in fact opened investigations into these 5 school districts. Now, I don't know how long this investigation is going to take because the policies are what the policies are, right? I mean, you can wake up one day and say, you know what, I feel like I'm a boy today, or I feel like I'm a girl today, and there's nothing stopping you from using the girls' locker room or using the girls' bathroom. Then if a girl comes in to the principal's office and says, hey, look, I've got a problem with this. Well, it's her. She's the one that has to go find alternative arrangements. You go look for one of those, 3 private restrooms around the school. So we're very excited that this Department of Education and the Trump administration they mean business.
Yeah. Well, Ian, so let's say this is a quick investigation. They're found to be in violation. What's next? What happens? What is the penalty, and who would enforce it?
Well, as I understand the process, what could happen is they could go to one of these schools and say, look, you're in violation of Title IX, as we interpret Title IX, as multiple courts, really including the Supreme Court, have interpreted Title IX. You have to stop this policy, or else we're going to sue you. And then the Department of Justice would bring an enforcement action, or they could simply just stop Title IX funds, or any funds, for the school. So they could lose their federal funding. So for a place like Loudoun County, I believe it's $35 million. For Fairfax, we're looking at $50 to $60 million. Now, whether they just see that as a rounding error in their budget, okay, fine. Well, that pays their teachers' salaries. If you go look at their budget items, you'll see $35 million. That's what goes to teachers. So then they're going to have to go back to the taxpayers and say, well, we need more money from you because we need to make sure that we keep boys and girls bathrooms. You guys want to pay for that?
Right. And now if they fight it, that means they're going to be drawing money out of their budgets to pay for lawyers to fight this thing because they're more interested in the ideological argument than they are in keeping their budgets. So either way, we're going to find out pretty quickly exactly what the priorities are for these 5 school districts: Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William. What do you, knowing them the way you do you think that they're going to lawyer up and take this to the Supreme Court because that's more important to them?
Well, I think they're going to try, and I can tell you a few things. What they're going to rely on this Grimm case out of the Fourth Circuit. Now, the Grimm case, it's a 5-year-old case, and it's almost effectively dead. Grimm said that a girl that wanted to use a boys' room, she had a Title IX right. Well, there's been numerous cases. It made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court on Biden's Title IX rule, and the Supreme Court, all 9 justices agreed that Title IX, sex means biological sex. So the Title IX piece of Grimm is dead. And if they try on the equal protection piece of Grimm, which it was also decided, saying the Constitution protects transgenders, which I don't know that they had that in mind in 1867 or 66 when they passed the 14th Amendment. But, all right, let's talk about that for a second. The Skermetti case that was heard in December at the Supreme Court is in all likelihood going to decide the equal protection issue in June. And my prediction is they're going to say, yes, that transgender is not a protected status under the Equal Protection Clause. So these schools, their one legal argument that they could even possibly have is going to be out the door.
That's encouraging, particularly that piece you mentioned, trans not being a part of the protected classes. Now, I'm just thinking that there's going to be the legal fight, but there's also going to be the fight in the court of the public opinion, Ian. How can conservatives and people who are just pro common sense, which is, save women's sports and women's spaces for women, how can they get ahead of the arguments? Because I can imagine that, let's say funding is attached or as a penalty, these counties lose their funding, then you're going to hear all the stories, the Trump administration is taking money from schools. See, we told you so. So what can be done to really win the public's opinion before and get ahead of these arguments that we're going to hear in the future?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think they should file their own Title IX complaints with the Department of Education, citing specific examples. For just look at Arlington, where you've got this guy, Richard Cox, a serial sex offender running around in these female locker rooms that are run by Arlington County Public Schools. I'm sure we have many examples of boys using girls' rooms and and girls using boys' rooms in these school systems. People should write to the Department of Education. They should go to school board meetings. They should highlight these. Yeah. They could also write to the Attorney General of Virginia, because in Virginia, the Constitution of Virginia, Article 1, Section 11, is basically written the same way as Title IX is. It says, the government shall not discriminate on the basis of sex, and mere separation on the basis of sex is not discrimination. So under the Constitution of Virginia, you are prohibited from doing that. So these schools could be enjoined, much like our lawsuit in Fairfax County, where we've used that very theory, and we're going to be having a trial on that, I believe, starting September 29th, which may result in a court deciding that, yes, Fairfax County Public Schools is in violation of the Constitution.
Ian Pryor, I agree with this policy, and I don't want there are 2 sexes, and there should be boys' rooms and girls' rooms, and biological men should stay out of girls' spaces. But I also would never win an election to school board in Fairfax County. And I think the argument could be made that as destructive and horrible as these policies are, clearly the voters of Fairfax County like this sort of thing. They put Carl Frisch on as their school board president. Aren't we sort of falling into the same trap of having the federal Department of Education dictate policies to local school boards and local communities? Fairfax likes this kind of thing. Shouldn't they be able to do it without threat from the federal government?
Well, there's a difference between dictating policies and enforcing the law. And that's the issue here. When we're talking about the Department of Education, the Biden administration would use the Department of Education to dictate these policies pushed by the teachers' unions or special interests. Title IX is not a policy. It's the law. The Virginia Constitution is not a policy. It's a law, right? It is the guiding principles of the Commonwealth. So there's a very big difference from saying, we want you to do this specific thing because we like it, and the voters in Fairfax County that put these people on the school board may like it. Great, that's fine, but you cannot violate the Constitution. You cannot violate federal law. And even if you didn't have a Department of Education anymore, that function would simply go to the Department of Justice. So I see a lot of people saying, I thought conservatives wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. Well, it doesn't matter because Title IX is Title IX. It was passed by Congress, signed by, I believe, President Nixon. It is the law.
Yeah. And then grossly rewritten by the Biden administration, but thankfully that has been undone. Ian Pryor, always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for doing this, and keep us updated.
Thanks for having me.